once stood in front of a manager who was joking about his hair, while everyone in that room quietly wondered why this scrawny kid from a cattle farm was even in the building. 15 minutes later, nobody was laughing anymore. This is the story of a boy who was rejected, broken, buried in grief, and rebuilt himself piece by piece until the entire footballing world agreed on one thing: there would never be another one like him. It is the year 2013, and Carles Puyol is standing in front of Barcelona's board with a contract still worth real money sitting in front of him. His knees have been rebuilt more times than anyone can count. His face has been fractured, stitched, and hidden behind a custom mask just so he could keep playing. And instead of collecting what was legally his, he tears it up. He tells the club he no longer deserves to be paid for what his body can no longer give. Think about that for a second. A professional athlete, at the peak of his earning power in the sport, chooses to walk away from money because staying would feel dishonest. That single decision tells you who this man really was, long before we talk about trophies or tackles. And if you want another piece of proof, go back 2 years earlier to the Champions League final in London. Puyol comes on as a substitute late in the game. Barcelona wins. The captain is supposed to lift that trophy. It is tradition. It is his right. Instead, he walks straight past the moment that belonged to him and hands the armband to Éric Abidal, a teammate who had just come back from surgery to remove a tumor from his liver. Puyol later called that the greatest moment of his entire career. And it was not even his own hands on the trophy. Now rewind everything, because none of this makes sense until you understand where this man actually came from. Long before Camp Nou, there was a small mountain town called La Pobla de Segur, tucked into the Catalan Pyrenees, where the Puyol family ran a cattle farm with several hundred cows. This was not a football family in the traditional sense. This was a working family. Carles grew up climbing rocky trails and building makeshift BMX jumps, not training on manicured pitches with proper coaching staff. He actually started out as a goalkeeper, until repeated shoulder problems and warnings from doctors about his back forced his mother to pull him out of that position entirely. He drifted through nearly every position on the pitch after that: striker, winger, midfield. Nowhere did he stand out for technique, because honestly, he did not have much of it yet. What one youth coach named Jordi Mari did see was something rawer than skill. He saw physical force and character that reminded him of the great Johan Neeskens. So he built a training program with what little he had. He filled old football socks with sand until each one weighed around 10 kilos. And he had this teenager perform sit-ups and runs with that dead weight across his shoulders at 7:30 in the morning, often before school even started. Puyol never once arrived late. He never once skipped a session. Here is the part that should genuinely stop you for a second. A Barcelona scout actually came to watch one of his matches. He left at halftime, completely unimpressed, and never even noticed the boy sitting quietly on that pitch who would one day captain the entire club. That scout walked right past the future. Years later, Puyol finally got his shot at a proper trial with La Masia, Barcelona's academy. One single training session. No promises attached to it. Before he left home, his father, Josep, a man who worked himself to exhaustion every single day on that farm, gave him a sentence that would define the rest of his son's life. If they send you home because 20 boys were better than you, that is fine. If they send you home because 20 boys worked harder than you, do not bother coming back. Puyol walked into that academy expecting it to be his first and last day. And honestly, by the technical standards they were judging on, he probably should have been sent home. The rejection paperwork was reportedly already prepared. But one coach, Joan Martinez Vilaseca, refused to let the door close. He overruled the technical dismissal because he saw the mentality underneath it. And that single decision is the entire reason any of this story exists. Even after staying, progress crawled. At one point, the club actually arranged to sell him to Mallorca for €1 million. He refused to go. In response, they pushed him out to right back, a position that demanded exactly the kind of attacking creativity he did not have, and then dropped him further down to the third team. It looked, for a while, like the story was quietly ending before it had really begun. Louis van Gaal once opened a training session by joking with the reserves about whether the long-haired kid could even afford a haircut. 15 minutes later, the jokes stopped completely. That kid was Puyol, and Van Gaal saw something the scouts had missed years earlier. Still, it took nearly 1,500 days from his first contact with the academy until an injury to Michael Reiziger finally forced Puyol into his senior debut against Valladolid on the 2nd of October, 1999. He played through a sprained ankle that night and simply never gave the shirt back. He had already accepted an offer to leave for Malaga at one point, but after watching a young midfielder named Xavi break into the first team, Puyol changed his mind and chose to stay and fight for his place instead. 5 days after finally earning his first senior call up to the Spanish national team, he suffered a serious knee injury that put him straight onto an operating table. Every single step forward in this man's career came attached to something trying to knock him back down. The year 2000 brought Luis Figo back to Camp Nou for the first time after his controversial transfer to Real Madrid, and the atmosphere that day was close to hostile. Pep Guardiola, still a player himself, quietly pulled the young defender aside and told him to study Figo and start thinking like him. For 90 minutes, Puyol stayed inches from him, denying every yard of space without a single reckless foul. When furious fans tried to confront Figo after the final whistle, it was Puyol who physically walked his old rival off the pitch to safety. A year after that, he threw his own chest in front of a certain goal, and the ball struck the badge on his shirt. Camp Nou erupted, not because it was a spectacular save, but because the gesture said something deeper. The name on the front of that shirt mattered more to him than anything written on the back. By the time Luis Enrique retired, the dressing room did not need a long discussion about who should wear the armband next. In November of 2006, while Carles was flying with the team to a match in A Coruña, his father Josep was killed in an accident on the family land when the machine he was operating overturned while he worked on a rural path. Frank Rijkaard delivered the news the moment the plane landed. Puyol flew straight back home. He later admitted that football became the only thing that let him stop feeling the pain, even for 90 minutes at a time. When a knee operation left him in a cast, he tore it off after just 70 days, against every piece of medical advice. Because in his own words, football was the only medicine that actually worked on him. I do not think you can separate the ferocity you saw on that pitch afterward from what happened to him off it. Under Pep Guardiola, everything Puyol had once been told he lacked was suddenly demanded of him. Passing, comfort on the ball, building attacks from the back. The same player once dismissed for having no technique quietly rebuilt his entire game through nothing but repetition and stubbornness. Alongside a young Gerard Piqué, the two became known across Europe as Beauty and the Beast, and the balance between them was close to perfect. At the 2010 World Cup, that defense kept 4 consecutive clean sheets through the knockout rounds. And in the semi-final against Germany, Puyol rose to meet a corner from Xavi with a header struck so hard that Piqué later said it felt like an actual plane had flown past him. Spain became world champions days later. Puyol never claimed to be the most gifted player on any pitch he stepped onto. He openly admitted he lacked the pace of players like Overmars or the raw power of Kluivert. What he had instead was a refusal to let hard work lose to talent. Franco Baresi once said Puyol put his face where most players would not even risk a foot. Piqué put it even more simply: no matter how hard you search, you will never find another Puyol. More than 600 appearances for Barcelona, 21 major trophies, a European championship, a World Cup, and yet none of that is really the image people carry with them when his name comes up. What people remember is a boy from a cattle farm who carried sand-filled socks at dawn, who refused an easy exit more than once, who walked a hated rival to safety through an angry crowd, who handed his own trophy moment to a teammate recovering from cancer surgery, and who walked away from guaranteed money the moment he felt he no longer deserved it. Football does not produce many players like that anymore. It rarely even tries to. So, here is what I actually want to know from you. Do you think modern football still has room for a player like Puyol? Or has the game changed too much for that kind of character to ever exist again? Drop your honest thoughts down in the comments.